Hey guys, so here we are, second episode of the Mass Debate. Can you believe it? I don't think the first episode really counts because we weren't really organized, we weren't really on top of things. But so now what we've done is we've got a couple of guests. We've actually pre-discussed what we're going to talk about, so it might seem a bit better. Let's see how it goes. One of our guests is late, but in total, let's use here. So first on the line, let's chat to Roxanne. Roxanne, how's it going?
Hey guys, how are you?
Are you well?
Yeah.
Surviving.
Yeah, good.
How's it been? It's been all right?
Yeah, it's been okay. I mean, it's been busy, surprisingly busy.
That's fantastic. Yeah, as long as you're not getting bored, that's fine, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So because I'm kind of in the process of, we've purchased a house and we're renovating the house and it's a complete construction site. To staying in the place that we're currently staying in, I'm fighting every urge of my body not to start packing because I know it's just going to become a shambles. So I have I've hired a company that's coming in to pack everything and then transport it across and unpack everything on the other side.
Great.
But the house on the other side, obviously because of the lockdown, is a complete construction site. So I'm trying to expect that that's going to be a prolonged thing. But yeah, we're surviving in a small space and making the best of the situation. And I mean, I'm more Gen X than I am a millennial. So I'm trying to look at it. Well, I feel like I might never get this opportunity again.
Sure.
So I'm just using all this time for productive building. And, you know, if any business thinks that they're not in a situation where they have to use this time to re-strategize, then their finger's not on the pulse, you know?
Yeah.
So everybody, I think, should be in the same boat. I was like, what are we going to do from here?
I agree. And then let's say how's it to Lauren over here. Lauren, how's it going?
Hey, everyone.
What's going on?
Hey, Lauren.
How's it going, guys?
Fantastic. How are you enjoying solitary confinement?
Loving captivity.
Oh,
did you believe that?
I saw this the other day. I think the president should give us another chance just to go to the bottle stores. Just one more turn. I didn't say
bottle stores.
I was like, 21 days. You know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's fine. I don't want to hoard. Give me another chance, please, Mr. President. More chance.
Oh, listen.
I'll fill this bar up to capacity. Stock up. No, just please, Mr. President, please. Okay, so hang on one second, guys. So here we go. Jason? Not yet. Anyway, okay. So maybe we can just shoot around the room really quickly. I'm Dean in marketing, advertising. Okay. This is my lovely wife, Rochelle.
I'm a legal practitioner.
Okay. Roxanne?
So I'm a shareholder and a non-executive in quite a well-established labor and transformation company. And I've recently branched away, and I've started another company that does training and development of people and incubation of small businesses. So it's a building phase all around. I'm very excited about it.
Fantastic. Lauren?
I am a large-scale event production manager and creative strategist.
Fantastic. And on the line, Jason. Hello, Jason.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay.
Very well, and you, my mate?
Yeah, my name's Jason.
So, Jason, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I keep people connected, and I use the commercial side, getting people talking and getting people connecting to each other for you guests at a communications company.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so we've got a nice spread of people throughout this conversation here. If people have got any questions and they want to understand, and they want to send us questions, we definitely can see questions coming through at any time. So on our Facebook or on our YouTube links, please, you can type a question, we'll see it. So yeah, let's start with Rochelle. Rochelle, you've got some stuff to tell us.
Okay, so more of a practical thing I think a lot of people are not sure about right now is, are the courts open or are they not open? What's actually happening? So first and foremost, the courts can never be closed entirely. part of our democracy, it's part of our constitution. But what can happen is access to them can be limited if it is reasonable. So the court buildings are open specifically for urgent matters. I'm going to use one example tonight of what would be an urgent matter, because sometimes what is urgent in a person's life is not necessarily urgent in the eyes of the law. So I'm going to use maintenance as an example. So let's say you are receiving maintenance for minor children, and you are really living hand to mouth. So if you don't receive that maintenance payment, you're not going to be able to buy groceries or keep paying the electricity. So if, for example, the person who has to pay that maintenance didn't pay that maintenance during this lockdown period, so let's, for example, say on the 1st of November, you didn't get your maintenance payment and you needed to survive, you can then approach the courts, either directly, you are allowed to represent yourself, or you can go through an attorney. And the judges in that instance, I think, would find that your matter is urgent and it can be heard. But don't, if the person who owes you maintenance, let's say, hasn't been paying you maintenance for the last 3 months, you can't now come during this 21-day lockdown period and now say, I haven't been receiving it for so long, now help me. I think the judges are going to say, well, you could have come before the lockdown period, so we're going to ask you to hold on there, come back after the lockdown period. So with that, I do want to also say about maintenance, if you have to pay maintenance, a lot of people's financial circumstances are changing drastically during this lockdown period and even after that. So if you have a change in circumstances, it is one of the grounds to vary a maintenance order. So I would say communicate to the person who's supposed to be receiving the maintenance, explain to them your situation, record it in some kind of an email. Try and come to an agreement. Then after the lockdown period, you can approach the maintenance court or the high court, and you can have the order actually varied formally. But specifically for maintenance, an obligation, you have to honor it. So if you can't honor it during this period, communicate to that person, try and make an agreement during the 21-day period, and then you can formalize it afterwards.
Okay.
So just back to the first question, or the first statement before we spoke about maintenance as an example, is the courts are open, but only for urgent matters. If though you have something that you want to deal with, the attorneys are still and the advocates are still working. So you can contact them telephonically, by email, set up a Skype session, use Zoom. And it doesn't mean that you can't get any legal advice during this period. It's just that there's limitations on actually going into the court buildings. Okay, so if anyone's got any questions, please send them to us about that, and I'll answer later in the program.
Okay, fantastic. Guys, anything you want to ask about that? Any points you want to bring up? Anything? Nothing specific?
Is there any sort of restrictions in terms of commercial matters?
So the directive we've given is the matter must be urgent. That's the directive we've been given from the Legal Practice Council. So it would be a case-by-case basis. So even in commercial aspects, there are certain things that would constitute urgency. For example, I would think that anything that's related to the value of shares right now would possibly constitute urgency, because what is happening in our economic circumstances is there's every few days that goes by, there's great devaluing happening. So if you were in the middle of a transaction to sell or buy shares, either in a private company, I would think that there's a possibility that you could meet that urgency requirement. But if it is specifically commercial matters, my suggestion is to approach an attorney and get advice from them before you rush to court. The one thing that we also need to consider is that the judges they themselves are also living through this process. So they are not going to entertain frivolous matters. They're not going to entertain, for example, if two directors are just having a go at each other and it's an emotional thing, they're not going to entertain that. They want to see that the people themselves are trying to resolve this first as rational adults before running to.
Exactly. Yeah, that's quite interesting. That's cool. Roxanne, maybe we can go to you now. We can have a little bit of a chat about. So the one thing we wanted to talk about last week, we just didn't get a chance, was this transformation within the business. And very importantly, and it's one thing we've spoken about previously, is being a businesswoman and a mother. You know, so like we all go through this in our own ways. Okay, there's mothers and fathers, and all of us, you know, all of us in this group here are parents, and now we're having to deal with a lot of things all at the same time. So, Roxanne, what do you think? How do we deal with this?
I'm so glad you asked me that, because you would be the first person since lockdown to even ask. So how are you coping, darling?
Okay.
How are you doing?
So it's become quite a strange setting in that I've always preached transformation and transformation in a different sense, in that we're looking at equality and empowerment within the workspace and how your colleagues view you. And that's already an interesting dynamic in allowing people to have fair and equal opportunities. But now, completely another story when you've stationed in your own home, and now you have to ask yourself the real question of who's going to do the housework and who's going to constantly look after Allegra, because she's 2.5. So to have that kind of attention span, I'll tell you something, teachers are underpaid. They are So I've had to run my household like I run my business. So I schedule time for everything, including spending time with her. And I've kind of broken up my arena to there's a different section in the house for each bit of chaos. And that's when we like kind of cross paths. So I've kind of taken over the patio area because I like to work outside in the garden, although I'm regretting that decision over these 2 days.
Yeah, I think you lost. I
keep on thinking, you know, shivering burns fat cells, but I'm dying out there. But then Allegra's obviously got the biggest place in the house, which is mostly the entertainment, and then Andre is confined to the office. Now, because he's in IT, he's mastered the art of isolation. So there could be World War V outside the door. I was on a video call actually yesterday.
How you had to find him?
And I texted him. I said, please, Allegra's literally in the kitchen sink and she's trying to break into the pantry cupboard and she's got a knife in her hand. I think you should intervene. So I texted that, but then I got worried because minutes passed. So I phoned him, but I was still on the video call being very, you know, professional. Yes. And I dressed and I bathed and all those things that we should be doing. And then I phoned him, but let him hear the conversation and then put down. I knew if I gave him a missed call, eventually he would come out, right? Well, at least I hoped. So we're kind of juggling through those. We're going to master the interruptions constantly.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. Because if somebody, for instance, is remote-based and they're on a support function, there's a lot of interaction with teams. And some of them, I've seen the forums that Andre sits in, like they're quite large. And to give each other feedback and still be productive without like flatlining when you're not talking is quite a skill. So I think we're all facing these new skill sets that we need to dig deep and, you know, master. Time management's like, that's been so hard, you know what I mean?
That's very, very tricky. Time management. I think if all the other aspects you can manage very well. You can time manage the work, you can time manage the domestic aspects of cleaning your house, but what you cannot time manage are your children. because they don't keep office hours.
Yeah, which obviously like rolls over and kind of barricades your whole day to the side, you know.
Correct.
That's it.
So
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So I must say that I think the easiest way to kind of master this is one, divide up your space so that you have like organized chaos. Everybody mocks the Portuguese, and let me tell you something. There was one thing that I had in my cupboard that I thought this could not be. In fact, I heard it categorically. It's been recorded in WhatsApps and so on that it's the most Portuguese thing I own, which is a plastic tablecloth. And thank God I have it. Thank God.
We all have them. We all have them.
I'm like, thank you, mate. I love you.
I'm not even joking.
I get it, but I get it now.
So it's like, guys, country's locking down. Lockdown. We in trouble.
Have everything in plastic.
Shelf like, okay, I'm just gonna get some fresh fruits and veggies, just the fresh stuff. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
He shows up with that plus some plastic tablecloths.
Well,
You never know. Now you walk around the house and the dining room table's covered. And this work area.
But you see,
I don't want to say it out loud, but I actually have two. One for Andre and one for Allegra.
but there we are, productivity, because you don't have to wash the actual tablecloth, which saves you, just wipe the plastic.
Yeah. And if you need to relocate, you just fold up the plastic and move it.
I'm with you.
Jason, did your wife buy one for you, mate?
Say it again.
Did your wife buy you a plastic tablecloth?
No, I bought my wife a plastic tablecloth.
Clever man.
He was brought up with a lot of Portuguese people.
So Roxanne, I find you right off of
Yeah.
one of the controversies we're saying was having these spaces in your home.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just logistically what's going on. But now, in the face of business, Gino and I were actually discussing it earlier, is like you've got to be so strategic with your time. And I mean, in this kind of situation, you want to have as many alliances as possible, because money may be a very scarce commodity for a very long period of time.
Correct.
So if you're going to spend time nurturing relationships, then do it with people where you can add value to each other's businesses.
100%.
And become open-minded to the fact that we might have to do a trade exchange eventually, where, you know, if there is a shortage of money and survival means your business survives, or, you know, you carry on being polite about it, then what are you really going to do? You know? So I think you need to spend your time quite cleverly with the people that you can add value to, and they can add value to you, and you can't be sleeping.
Yeah,
because
well said. 100%.
markets are changing and quickly. So you've got to be awake. I mean, just think, if had I not delayed one decision by 30 days, I wouldn't have lost 120,000 rand.
There you go.
So you just, because you always think, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow the bank's closed. Like you can't leave your house. You might call your mother. You know?
Yeah, you now can't send your money overseas. Come
I still got soap, but I still got my mattress. Maybe I should just do it the old way. I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with that. Somehow we got to start. I'm started chopping wood. I'm like, so wood. I've got a.
Are you sure that's not just the frustration of being confined? Because if I would, I would chop it.
You know, when it started raining today, when it was raining today, I wasn't angry because I couldn't do the thing I wanted to do. I was angry because I had to come back inside. I was like, oh, come on. I got electrical.
Don't you feel like you're 12 again? Like, oh, come on, I want to go inside.
Come on, bro. 12 more minutes.
5 more minutes, man. 5 more minutes out.
While we're talking about the weather, I think one of the industries that have had really or felt that this hit the worst is the events industry.
Very much so.
Up until now, it's been very people-based, on-site, at location, and probably after the 21-day lockdown, it's not going to go back to how it was. There's still going to be restrictions. If Lauren, maybe you can just assist the viewers with what are you living through and how are you being creative to find solutions?
Yeah, creative is an understatement. See, I think when the announcement was made that events are no more, just before the lockdown, I think our entire industry was just like a group of deer in headlights, going, "Well, what now?" You know. So obviously, events were starting to taper down slowly but surely. I think eventing would have changed over the course of the next 5 years, but we've had to very quickly come up with good solutions. So yes, there are streaming solutions which make the world a lot smaller, but I do think a lot of the options now are a lot more advanced than what we would have anticipated at this current time. So one of the challenges within the event space is always keeping a captive audience. When you've got a presenter busy speaking, you very often can lose attention. But there's so many technologies out there now that you can literally create the exact same environment and the same experience for every single person without losing them. From a virtual reality perspective, we can then play with audio as well to keep people captive. We've got augmented reality now as well that actually has me sitting in my home engaging with content on screen. In order to keep us captivated and keep the attention going. So, I do think the days are going to pass of having 1,000 people in a room having a conference, that time just doesn't allow for that travel and getting everyone there and to have a full day out of the office that you can then multitask at the same time. So I do think that we are on the forefront of something very exciting within the industry, but it is very, very important to just read up and research and test and play around and get opinions of what works and what doesn't work. Within the event space.
Yeah,
I think that's very intense. I mean, a lot of guys have spoken about like virtual conferencing or augmented reality and stuff. And at the end of the day, the question is, can you actually do it? Okay, so how are you going to do it? How are you going to stream this content? How are you going to host it? How are you going to do this? What is your content going to look like? Can you create augmented reality content? I mean, that's one of the things like you and I have spoken about in depth before. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, this is really when, to use an old saying, like you're going to separate the men from the boys, because it's going to come to a point where people like big corporates are going to say, oh, we need to do a business conference for 1,500 delegates and we can't bring them into a room. It's okay, cool, let's do a virtual conference. And then they'll assign somebody that they think can do it, Joey down the road here, and Joey just can't pull it off.
That is a challenge.
Yeah. You've got 2 people online and the rest are sitting and waiting.
I actually think that maybe you might be addressing it in too much of a smaller scale, because that's something that's still very doable. What happens to sports industries?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you... You're talking about sometimes 80,000 people in a stadium.
Yeah.
So I started researching actually post-pandemic behavioral patterns. And I mean, it takes an average of a 4-year cycle for people to start reintroducing themselves into society.
Sure. That's a long time, eh?
So that's maybe something you should be focusing on in the creative space, is how do you build up towards that, or how do you cut it shorter, or is that even viable medically? Because I mean, if a vaccine, like realistically, is only coming out in 18 months, what do you do at least for the next 18 months to survive? Because you're going to have to transact.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. I mean,
sports and arts get hit very hard.
But that goes back to what we started with last week, is that there has to be mindset of transformation, because this is actually not about 21 days of lockdown.
Not at all.
This is how do we carry on our businesses post this, because we have to be creative in every industry.
Yeah.
Some guys are taking it a lot harder than the other guys, but every industry is going to have to be creative and take transformation seriously.
Yeah, it's a big thing, man. I was speaking to some executives the other day as well, and everybody's in agreement in the fact when you say, like, this is not a 21-day problem.
Yeah.
No.
Right now, we're under lockdown for 21 days. It's not like we're all going to walk out and it's going to be time walked to 23 days ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's not going to be happening. Now you're dealing with every executive that still doesn't want to go to the office. You're dealing with a ton of workers and employees that maybe have gotten a bit lazy or they want to now work from home. There's a whole different, we're living in a whole different ballgame. And now, I mean, all of us know this with business, the money, you reap what you sow, but you only reap it later.
Yeah.
So you're saying you're busy making up meetings now, building business, doing whatever you're doing. And in 3 months to 4 months to 5 months, that's when you feel the reward from this network now. You know, so now we're sitting with this 21-day problem. Just before that, everybody was in freak out mode. What's coming in after this? And the problem is what's going to happen 5 months after this. So then we're really going to find an economic downturn. Then we're going to really have the problem. And that's when we really need to do what you said, Roxanne, is we need to connect.
Yeah.
People and businesses with their connections, everybody needs to start working together, you know?
Can I pose another view or a similar view? So I've over the last week, I've engaged with quite a few business owners, and it was interesting to see some of what I considered quite successful businesses in the SMME space to take different stances in terms of how they've handled this whole lockdown. So some people have shut down completely, and they're like, so I asked them, so what are your frustrations and how are you planning to change going forward? Like, how are you going to adapt to this? And some people are like, I'll buy masks and gloves, and I'm like, okay. And then there's some people that have actually given it some thought that they realize, you know, like, this is going to be, and I've said this on social media, and I'm probably going to get punched in the face for it one day, but this is a godsend. Because the thing is, if we carried on in the rut that we were in, there was a huge rift in our economy in that we stuck between that Gen X and that millennial space where millennials want purpose and they want to work from home and they want flexi time and all this stuff. Businesses, obviously, to try and innovate and engage with their employee, they compromise on that. Then there's the Gen Xers, which are so used to like working mad hours. So you understand the concept of you reap what you sow, right?
Sure.
Now, if we carried on the way, and if we had to like rewind to where we were 23 days ago, let's say, is it really sustainable to carry on working in that way? Because the thing is, there's such a disconnect in terms of those worlds and those ways of thinking. And it's obvious that it takes all kinds, but there's only one way we could have actually forced it to merge, which is this circumstance right here.
Yeah, you're right, huh?
Level the playing field.
Yeah.
So you need to prepare yourself for the future in that events. Lauren, you're lucky, because what about industries like tourism?
Yeah.
I don't want to.
We have a travel arm as well, a travel arm of the business, and it's difficult. Incentive travel, it died instantly. I'll be there with a fan and
a box of like food dipped in cotton sheets and let them line their lounge and put on 4D goggles. I don't know what else you can do.
Like, this is the ocean breeze.
I think you brought up a good point, because the person who's going to help us to be connected, even on a tourism level, is Jason.
Yeah,
this is where his focus lies. Is with all of the social distancing, how does the world stay connected?
Yeah, I mean,
even that environment is going to change. Right, Jason?
Yeah.
Well, I think I just want to make a comment on also the last point there, which was, you know, how things change. I'm currently going through a government-induced cold turkey of cigarettes, and they say that you need around 21 days to quit a habit. And it's strange that it is weird that we're going through a 21-day lockdown. We're being forced into changing our habits on how we do things. On the one hand, we have to use technology to a lot more to stay connected. But I think one of the major concerns now is really around, social distancing and things like that. What does that do to the human element of who we are and what we do?
True.
I think there's a lot of people praising the idea that we can all now sit in our boxes for the whole day and take conference calls and do what we need to do. But I think we'll see in the future, really, over 5-6 months, what the damage is when we don't have those, office water cooler conversations and the ability to share a coffee with somebody impromptu.
100%.
Or have a hug. Like, don't you want a hug bad? Right?
Well, I think what's important though is firstly, coming from a large corporate, I think what we're learning from all of this is now more about how to be more efficient. So how to get and a lot faster, because people don't really want to sit on 4-hour video conferences. As much as we don't like to sit in 4-hour meetings in boardrooms, we like it even less when we're doing that when it comes to video conferencing. So, efficiency is the name of the game, where video conferencing, things like that, are now going to be used for quick questions, not necessarily replacing what we had before, but maybe filling in the gaps. But I think what is going to change, especially from a South African labor landscape, is those office-bound workers are definitely after this. There's going to be a huge amount of conversations around flexi working policies and things like that. And it's been something that's started to come into the corporate landscape. But I think we're now at a point of no return where working policies are now going to be the name of the day. We are going to be given the chance to work 2-3 days from home, and how we can.
Mm-hmm.
And in then adopting those kind of things, that's now going to start changing what we do with our home life. What we do with our spare time. If now the focus is on quality rather than quantity, how do we adapt towards that so that maybe we're working less, doing more, and getting more time at home, getting more time with the kids and the family, and hopefully planning some trips to places that don't have COVID or haven't been hit with COVID, or
Yeah.
Jason, I actually have a question for you. I have a question for you, Jason.
Sure.
Because we spend a lot of time speaking about how we're coping with working at home, but the thing is, you manage large teams. Like, there's teams of teams that report into you. So that's a massive organization. Like, what are you guys doing about keeping your employees engaged and still having that trust relationship for them to still produce what they wanting to, or you need them to produce, or more importantly, that they trust your vision enough to be able to carry on with that 100% commitment, to be able to produce that level, It's hard to be that efficient in your own space.
And where it is, I guess where it's sometimes difficult to get 30, 40 people in the room on a regular basis, it's not always possible.
And how productive is it in this environment?
No, 100%. But surprisingly, it's something that where like a teleconference can come in. You can have 100, 150 people. I was sitting on a video conference on Wednesday that had 390 people on it. Wow. And surprisingly, technology was flawless. We're having, most of the telecommunications companies down here are struggling with a cable cut. Internet speeds are down. Yet technology has come along. We can put 400 people on a video conference and have very few, if not no, technical issues. And this was a video conference that was my group CEO touching base with 400 people in the company, literally just to say hi. Are you okay? Are you guys surviving? Is there anything I can do for you? I'm not talking about business per se, but literally just touching base with people.
And still having that personal connection and that conversation with your people. Like, are you guys okay?
Yeah. But that's something I wanted to maybe touch on. I just wanted to ask you, like in a big corporate like where you're living now, Jason, is there a way for everyday employees, if they've got something to say or somebody to talk to that needs, is there a channel for them to communicate? Or, in the old days it was like the door is always open. It's like, is the Skype connection always?
Are you always online?
Are you always online? I don't know. When you read your WhatsApp.
Well, I think corporate leadership has come on in leaps and bounds in the last, say, 20 years. I just started working about 95 years ago. Usually the whole "my door is open" policy was a load of nonsense. These days, though, really the door is open, whether it's a quick WhatsApp, whether it's a quick chat, a quick video call, and even more so now. I think some of the executives at the moment are probably more available now because you can get something done. You can specify that for this 10 minutes, I'm going to have this chat, and I know that it's going to be brief. I've got a video in front of me, so I can see the person. You can touch base. But what's interesting in our company is we've even got we've got the WhatsApp channels. You can leave a video comment, like a suggestion box. You can leave one of those, and it gets back to you within 24 hours. If it's really, really important, you actually get an email from somebody who needs to deal with this kind of problem. So, technology is enabling a lot of this communication. I think we've still got a long way to go, especially as facing some of this technology and forward. But I think we are ready. As Roxanne said, I as much as I hate the lockdown, as much as I hate what's happening in the world at the moment, this is an opportunity for us all to kind of detox a bit and really think about where we were going and start thinking about where we want to go. And while we might lose a little bit of humanity along the way, we're probably going to gain a huge amount more in terms of trying to solve more human problems rather than more technical issues.
Yeah,
but I mean,
definitely. In terms of what you said, Jay, don't you think like your directors, all barring the fact that they're probably managing their time a lot better because they don't have to commute between meetings and like do time wasting stuff. Don't you feel this has kind of brought on a more humane approach across the board in terms of how people are dealing with staff's grievances, with where they are emotionally, Because
I think it's so much more compassionate.
You're all feeling a bit like, oh my god.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think we've been using it. We've been using it in offices quite a lot, and something I was discussing with Dean yesterday is, I also used to do, or still do, quite a bit of traveling. I'm currently on a travel lockdown because of what we're going through at the moment. But Dean posed a very good question, which was, would you still need to travel? And where I think
good question.
Travel is going to come down now because of the adoption of tools and way of work. There will still always be this requirement to have that human interaction and get to see someone, make sure that they're not real, that they are real, then they're not something that's created in some lab in Silicon Valley. There are certain things that need to be done face to face with a person in the room, and the ability to pick up on
important for the relationship too, I think.
Yeah. But I think are we still going to be 2 weeks away on a business trip? Probably not. I think there's going to be a lot of in those kind of things, and it's going to be what we're doing. And in that, maybe even the cost of running business and the cost of doing business this is all uncharted waters for us. It really, really is. We don't realize it yet, but it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like the focus is all on where are we going financially, and everybody is in survival mode. And now we're looking at and assessing at whether we should, what staff we can retain, how long we can retain them for, what is strategic, what is critical and core to your business, which is versatile, nice to have. But actually, shouldn't we be, I don't know if people are focusing enough on, okay, cool, this has to happen by the numbers, people. But in the same breath, are the creative people focusing on engaging with their people and saying, like, what do you need right now? Because all this financial relief stuff, don't you find like the government and outstandingly so stood there and kind of maneuvered and logistically planned out what things should happen, what should happen and what needs to happen.
Yeah, correct.
And there were promises made and commitments made in terms of banks coming back with a holiday relief and payments and whatever. Apart from SMME SA and the government's feedback, I find, and Standard Bank has also been good, very little corporate engagement. I have had zero answers to emails in terms of what are we going to do about payments, because now I'm stuck between transfers of property, so I've got 2 bonds. So your communication is all critical in that, and I'm sure, like, are they engaging with you behind doors because they need you?
So let me jump in. So being, creative in the creative field and everything, you get involved in a lot of different businesses. So I'm on quite a few WhatsApp groups with different corporates, different companies. And a lot of the executives and a lot of the head honchos and everything retain constant communication with the staff. Even one of our viewers right now, speaking from their company, their bosses have constant conversations, not always about work, sometimes just chatting to find out how they're doing, and it motivates them and it goes on. And that's very important. So every day, work day, from the one company, I get one type of message. Another company, a different type of message. A different company, a different type of message. So everybody's always trying to motivate their staff. And I understand from also owning a few companies, like you understand, like with your staff, it's to motivate them. It's tough, It's tough when you're sitting in the room with them. Now you're not. Now you're sitting in a situation with your laptop.
But now you can plan content.
Yeah. For example, exactly. So actually, think about that. My business.
Gotcha.
I should be communicating with people that listen. I do internal comms too. Just saying. Hashtag. Just saying.
Stop trying to say something, dude.
Say something,
Like, surely both your companies have intranets.
Yeah.
Lauren and Jay.
Yes.
Like, you've got open comms throughout, whether your staff sits in the office or out the office, right?
We work from wherever. Like, it really, from our side, you either on site. So our dynamic hasn't changed much because there's a lot of travel, there's a lot of being on site, but it's very important to stay in communication with each other and how you're feeling, especially with the creatives, because as soon as there's a dip in energy, there's a dip in that creativity.
God goes away. Listen, you're hardly in your office. I don't even know if you have an office. I mean, you're flying around. You're just jet setting 24/7, my friend. You know what I mean?
If you're allowed.
On that topic, and this is not a concrete legal advice, but just a flag for business owners and specifically employers. Yes, right now, everyone is worried about figures and numbers and what people are saying. This is the line, and these many people need to go. When we come out of this lockdown, there is definitely going to be an influx at the CCMA. And just a word of warning, commissioners, irrespective of what the law says, the commissioners are going to use their discretion in these matters. Because, and especially your staff that is living hand to mouth, the commissioners at the CCMA are going to look at the human element. So just be cautious. Yes, your accountant is saying 1, 2, 3. Please take into account that human element, because you will need to show the commissioners that you've engaged with the people, you've given other alternatives, you've been creative, that during this lockdown, you were not just focused about business productivity, but that you were also interested in the human that is working for you. So just keep that in the back of your mind while we're all trying to survive this.
Yeah.
I just had a bright idea, Dean, but you're going to smack me if I say this online, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm going to. Okay.
I was like, oh, Roxanne.
Incoming. Pull the pin and lob the grenade.
Last week I had to bleep my words out. Now this week you're going to have to edit this whole portion.
Yeah, hey Dean, here's a grenade. Deal with this.
How cool would it be if we could get Corporate South Africa through their BEE to sponsor departments like this that need to go online? Small businesses also that need to go online. I mean, why aren't you using your enterprise and supply development and your social development to get all these platforms online so that when your businesses are forced to go online, stuff works around you?
Yeah,
so
can.
CCMA matters can be handled via Zoom. There's computers in every location. There's access in terms of data and 3G and 5G and 28G. See, I'm very clued up in terms of the tech.
Smashing that.
Jason already promised me. It's going to be communication up here.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I'm just saying, wouldn't that be a nice opportunity?
Yeah.
There's lots of small businesses that are stuck without internet access, no fiber. What are we going to do?
Yeah, but that's what we were talking about last week as well, when we were saying we as businesses, small businesses, we have a responsibility, okay, to South Africa. No matter what.
And corporate South Africa, if they're going to be spending on BEE, then why not trigger it where the business needs it, not what the legislation allows?
100%.
You know, too much this. Tick, tick.
Yes, no, you're
change
totally
your
right.
strategy quick.
Yes. If somebody has a question like in that kind of realm, like to somebody like says, okay, I need help with BEE. In essence, let's say it's a small business now that's suffering. You have a responsibility to now in this space or this time help that person. Do you know what I mean? I have a responsibility in marketing. If somebody calls me from a small business and says, Dean, I don't know how to communicate on social media because I've never had to, but now I do. How do I do this? What do I do? I have a responsibility to say, cool, buddy, let's have a conference, a digital conference, and let's talk about this. You know, and I will try, obviously without destroying my business, because I still got to pay.
Can I tell you something? For the first time, Dean, I agree with you 100% most of the time. Don't get me wrong.
This time.
In this time especially, I agree with you because I've seen, like, you know, medium-sized enterprises that aren't, you know, throwing money out the seams, that have literally appealed to South Africa and said, you know what, we are here, you know, we feel you, we understand your pain, we can offer you as much support and information as we can, as fast as we receive it, we can interpret it, we can apply it. You know, they have come to the forefront, and that was my whole point with Jason, and in terms of keeping in touch with his thousands of staff is, you know, people are showing up for the first time in a very long time.
A lot of people are doing that. I do agree with you.
Yeah.
And can I tell you something? It's by those executives that are shaking in their boots behind their doors, okay, that know the expenses that have to run through those businesses, that have got stress up to here, that are making it happen, and they deserve a shout out.
I agree with you.
Now we need sponsorship. I'm just saying, after that speech, I think we should.
Roxanne, well done.
Nike, just do it. Just say.
Hey, you know, but no, man, I think we've got, like, just to recap, like, we've got a responsibility to other people, we've got a responsibility to ourselves, we've got a responsibility to our staff, internally and externally facing. You know, big corporates have got to communicate correctly. Externally, they have to communicate to their staff correctly. I love those little messages I get every morning. I mean, I'm not even a fully paid staff member at some of these companies. They just involve me for a creative space, and like they'll send me like little memes, like "Hey guys," you know, and I'll dig it. It's fantastic. You know, I wake up and I'm like, "Oh, it's so funny."
Do the day.
That's so funny. But that's great. And so we've got a responsibility. I think you're 100% Roxanne. Like the government, the BE space, they need to get more involved. Lauren, from an eventing point of view, and from big events, like, man, I think we're going to weed out the people that can and the people that cannot do this. It's literally
Very
just going to
quickly.
happen like that, like super quick.
Very quickly. Very quickly. You're going to weed it out very quickly.
For 4 or 5 years now, and I know without a shadow of a doubt, your business can pull off what it promises, right? But there are going to be thousands of businesses that see this opportunity, like the guys that are suddenly selling more, you know? There's going to be thousands of guys seeing this opportunity, starting a little social business that can do virtual hosting, virtual conferencing. They just can't do this. They just can't host.
Yeah, that'll because it's very easy to say, and then it happens, and now you have to do it. So one of the things, maybe for one of our other chats that I'd love to, maybe if we can get a speaker involved in, is in terms of the public liability insurance on stuff like this, and the legal aspect of the cancellations, and what happens when you have this massive live stream event and there's no connectivity. Who does that liability sit on? Because my client has paid me for an event that I've delivered everything A, B, and C, but the one variable that I'm not in control of, where does that liability sit?
Sounds like next to you. So
Sounds like you've got homework, Jason.
There he is.
Did you just mute yourself? I also did it the wrong way.
Communication hasn't really helped us into that. So we are working on it. We've got the networks in place. We need the support of the government in terms of the spectrum to be able to deliver that kind.
I'm concerned for the future. Why is it the only 3G guy has no 3G? Wow.
Oh, that is poor timing. I'm sorry.
No.
Jason, are you there?
Jason?
Those kind of services you're looking for.
We have an idea, Jason, because we didn't hear what you said. It was your connectivity.
Sorry, can you just repeat?
Isn't it ironic?
Sorry, Jason, can you repeat what you said?
Okay, I think I'm having connectivity problems myself at the moment because I keep missing huge chunks of the conversation. But
you should lay a grievance.
But Jace, let's do this.
Okay.
I'll chat to you offline, and then let's catch up next week, and we can carry on with a few other conversations. That's okay.
No, not a problem. Sounds good.
Well, thanks, Jason. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
That was such a good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I think
it's a challenge. It's a massive challenge. I went through our public liability insurance to see, is there anything there to cover us? And there isn't. You've got the challenge of communicable diseases that there isn't insurance to cover it. So there's that challenge. And then there's the challenge. So cool, we have this awesome solution. It's within the virtual space. It's so exciting. It's amazing. And we can literally do the full production. We can make sure everything is done. And then on the day, there's load shedding. There's connectivity issues. Yeah. Where does that liability sit? Because me as a service provider, I've delivered. My client has paid me for a service. I've delivered, but through third parties, the service wasn't delivered.
But can I ask, how do you differentiate between the service provider and the end user connection? So let's just say
we're not in control of that.
Yeah, I mean, we can carry on with
What
this
do you
next
mean,
week.
Dean? What do you mean?
Pardon?
What do you mean?
Okay. You are with service provider A, and I'll just name it. Like, let's say you're with Vumatel. Okay. So now you're listening or you're connecting to this conference at home. And then Lauren's doing a big event. So now she connects using one of the big teleconference communicating whatever. So whatever. So it could be MTN, Vodacom, Cell C, whomever. Okay, connects with that system. One guarantees uptime, the other guarantees uptime. But for some reason, Roxanne just doesn't get her connection. How do you prove who's to blame?
Which party? Where does the
Well,
One will
Isn't that
say,
always been the case? I mean, that's why they've always been forced to build their infrastructure much better than one another.
for
That's
sure.
exactly how they captivate the market. So we've got more towers, we've got more strength, we've got connectivity.
I'll give you an example. When I was in radio broadcasting, we used to do live shows between Joburg and Cape Town. And we had a telecom connection between Joburg and Cape Town, and it was like this. And then it was ISDN, it wasn't ADSL and all that kind of stuff. Yes, on that one. I know. It's like, that was like 64 kilobits.
You have to crank it in a box. You have to crank it.
I did one of those things when you walk around and go, oh my gosh, when I did a dial-up and it didn't go.
Are you sure? It didn't go.
Yeah, I clicked it and it went connected. I was like, oh my gosh. It was amazing, But anyway, what are my points? So the line dropped between us and Cape Town, and a whole bunch of advertisers' ads didn't go out on air. It was being played from Cape Town, but it was sending to us in Johannesburg. Johannesburg was broadcasting to Centec and Centec to the world, all to the country. And the whole thing that happened is the line broke somewhere. So then there was a liability thing of the amount of adverts that weren't played. Yeah. And it was probably 90, 120 odd plus minus 1,000 somewhere around there. So it's not pocket change, it's a few bob.
Yeah.
Now it became an argument between the person running the control desk in Cape Town, the person running the control desk in Joburg, the IT manager of both sides of the chain, plus Telkom, plus the manager of Telkom, plus the supplier of the line. So now everybody going through this whole long years debate and like trying to figure out who's to blame. Yeah. And everybody guaranteed uptime. Yeah. Everybody.
But this is the thing. So you'll guarantee it, but there's the what if element. So if a client has paid me, let's say there's, as an example, a motor vehicle company decides to do a virtual launch. They want to launch a new model of a vehicle. Now, they would normally do that in an event space, but let's say we now do this within the virtual space, and bam, 25% of the attendees don't see the launch.
You would only be able to fix it in one way. Everything has to be pre-recorded.
Not only that, you want to broadcast as live
as possible. Which means you lose human connectivity even more.
Yes.
Unless you prearrange an audience.
Yeah. So what we're going to have to build into our systems and put them in place is we'll have fallback lines. So we'll have a line with Vodacom, a line with MTN, a line with Cell C, a line with Telkom, a line with whomever the ADSL and this, and as many as we can, because then you've got fallbacks. If it cuts from one and it goes to the next, or if you've got like frame drops.
Load shedding in an area.
Sorry?
Well, load shedding is a whole different kettle of fish because there's no connectivity then.
Yeah,
where does that hold down?
Then you're
if you have load shedding in an area, then all towers are down.
Yeah, then you do.
You lose a portion of your market, or worst case scenario, you're in that area and you can't broadcast.
Yeah. So I think let's
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, let's finish this next week. Let's bring this up again. Let's do some research on it, and maybe we can bring some other people in. Let's see if somebody's thought about this. Maybe we can get somebody from an insurance space, somebody in liability that could possibly give us an answer.
That would be amazing.
I think so. Roxanne, it's on you.
No, I was just about to say, in light of transformation, because Lauren and I are both mothers and still have to be business executives, and you have the pleasure of just being a business guy and sometimes a dad that does dishes.
You wipe down the tablecloth.
Seems I do have more free time. I know, because I speak Crack with you a lot of the time of the day.
Yeah, but those are always during baby's naps. Just saying.
We should be real working.
Yeah, I don't take calls when I'm with mother. You know what I'm saying? So those times anybody phones me, and I'm like,
just watch this space.
yeah.
So we're going to start closing off. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you do want to partake, we invite people. Please make contact with us during the week. We'll set it up for the following Saturday. And be safe.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Okay, stay safe. Check you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
You too. Bye.
Bye.